Yay. All right. What's up, y'all? My name is Patrick, and this is the first episode of the Join the Rivalry Podcast. I am joined today by my co-host, Jimmy Bones.
Hello.
And Vince Chapman.
Hello.
And we had this idea originally to do a podcast based entirely on Pokemon Go. It might evolve from there into other things and something different, just depending on how long we can actually make a podcast about this very narrow topic last. For now, that's what it's about. We'll see how it goes. Kind of flying by the seat of our pants here, but I think we're going to have a lot of fun doing it. I do a few other podcasts, a retro game podcast called Original Gamers Podcast and a personal one, and they're a lot of fun, and they get better as they go on. So thanks for tuning in and listening. How you guys doing? Vince, what you been up to lately?
Oh, just catching Pokemon. Actually 20 minutes ago, I ran out and caught a Taurus.
Nice.
Yeah, you say that until I tell you how much CP it had.
Oh.
Which is 24.
24?
24.
Ah.
So, I was really excited at first, and then it's kind of a bummer moment once the CP popped up. But other than that, just kind of hanging out, chilling, and doing my thing.
Sweet. The real lame thing about catching those low CP Pokemon that don't evolve is you're not going to get that big stat boost from evolving them.
Right.
Because they don't. So you just got this basically worthless bull-looking thing sitting in your inventory taking up space.
Exactly.
Well, the thing like that really is that even when you're playing the regular handheld Pokemon games, the standalone Pokemon tend to be disregarded anyway.
Yeah.
Because there's no real sense of progression to them, yeah?
Right. I can't think of a single, just single stage Pokemon that I use in anything. Although, not to get too far off, but Pachirisu, he's that electric squirrel thing. Is he an electric type? No, I can't remember.
Yeah, he is. Yeah,
and he made the news in a Pokemon tournament a while ago.
Yeah, I did. I saw that, actually.
So they're not completely useless. You just got to know how to use them. I personally don't get that deep into combat mechanics of the game, so.
Neither do I, but I have theme teams, and he's part of my Cutie Pie team.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Very nice.
But what have you been up to, Jimmy?
Not a whole lot. Working all the time, all day long, all night long. Just bought a house.
Nice.
And, hoping every once in a while to actually log into the game.
Definitely. I used to log into it fairly regularly. I have it on my main phone, but it's a Nexus 5, and not the new Nexus 5 that came out last year, but the one that they released going on 3 years ago. And it doesn't like playing Pokemon Go and doing anything else at all at the same time. So what I've started doing is tethering another phone that my wife just had laying around to this one and using that to play Pokemon Go. And my son, I've got a tablet, and he was playing it on that, and so we were both tethered to my phone. But unfortunately, and I don't know if it's the tablet or what, but Pokemon Go doesn't like running on the tablet real well. It'll run pretty good for about 2 or 3 minutes, and then it'll just crash to the home screen, and you got to reopen it. And he got real frustrated doing that over and over and over again, and it just kind of got to where he just didn't like playing anymore because he spent more time staring at the login screen than actually playing. So I don't get to play it as much because I feel like if I'm driving around and then I feel bad if I'm like, hey, I'm gonna go hit all these Pokestops that are on the way home, because that turns into a 20-minute ordeal, and he's sitting in the back of the car like, what are we doing? Why aren't we home? So I've had to slow down a little bit, but I do get to play quite a bit, especially when at night after he goes to bed, I'll pull it up and see what's just immediately around the house that I don't have to walk too far away and from to go catch. I did. What Pokemon did y'all start with? What was your starter?
Squirtle.
Yeah.
I started with Charmander.
Ugh.
I went Bulbasaur. Yeah.
You got all three.
Yep. Bulbasaur was when I played the very first one. I want to say I had blue version and my brother had red. But Bulbasaur was the first one I picked, and of course back then I didn't know anything about this, so I don't really know why I picked him. But ever since that game, he's just been my favorite Pokemon. And in the Game Boy DS games, the reason is what I like to do is get him to where he's got Leech Seed.
Oh yeah.
Poison Powder.
Yeah.
And either Stun Spore or Sleep Powder, and then something like Vine Whip or Solar Beam. But that's really just to fill the other slot. Because what I like to do is just slowly suck the life out of my opponent.
That's why I like to use Giga Drain.
Mm-hmm.
But I always end up throwing that kind of combination on my Oddish. And moving on from there, because as far as pure plants go, I prefer the Oddish line over the Bulbasaur line, because Bulbasaur seemed too hybrid to me.
Yeah.
My kids, they watch this show called The Octonauts, yeah?
Okay, I know what that is.
Yeah, it's this goofy little 3D cartoon with, a little bit of edutainment in it. But they've got this minor set of characters called the Vegemals, I think.
Yes.
They're supposedly half plant, half animal, or half animal, half vegetable. I'm not sure exactly what the logic is in that, but anyway, that's what it reminds me of. It's like a frog that happens to be being taken over by a parasitic bulb of something.
I suppose that's one way to look at it.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I picked Bulbasaur in Pokemon Go, and had I known that where I live there were just going to be Bulbasaurs everywhere, I would have picked one of the other two. Because I run into Squirtle fairly regularly, but I've seen one Charmander, and I was on my way somewhere, and for the record, I don't play this game and drive at the same time. If I'm at a stop, and we'll talk about safety tips and stuff later, but if I'm at a stop, and I know there's a Pokestop, I'll go there and stop the car and pull it out. But so I'm in the passenger seat, and I have the game open, and there's a Charmander pops up, and I tell the person driving, hey, dude, pull over. And then they pulled their phone out, and we picked him up. But that is the only one that I've seen anywhere around here. So had I known that, I probably would have picked Charmander as my starter, because Bulbasaurs are fairly common. I think my best catch was actually a Venusaur. I was dropping my son off at my parents' house so he could spend the night, and just sitting in the driveway, I was like, well, I'm gonna pull the game up and see, because that was the first time I had been at their house after the game came out, so I didn't really know what to expect. I open it up, and there's a level 700 something, or a combat point 700 something Venusaur just sitting in the driveway. And I'm like, what? So, yeah. Fortunately, I had some of those berries and some great balls, and was able to snag him. So,
I started with a Squirtle, and I have not yet seen either Squirtle or a Bulbasaur in the wild. I've come across two Charmanders exactly, one of which tried to kill us all by spawning on a diesel pump, and the other one which I couldn't find anywhere.
Yeah. Charmander and a diesel pump.
Well, I saved us all, but still, the the starters. You know, as far as the starters are concerned, the original series, the original game, the original Pokédex numbers, those are the only starters I actually like. Ever since then, they've all been just sort of meh. You know, they have that sort of feel to it. I'm wondering, when they actually start going into the second, third, and fourth generation in Pokemon Go, I wonder if they're going to give us the option to pick another starter, if we're going to have to find them all in the real world. That's something I'd like to know very much.
I had not even considered that, because I would assume if you're a new player after they come out, you might get the option, but I hadn't even thought about what that's going to look like for those of us who have already in it.
Right.
That'd be cool if they just, here, pick one, like they did with the others. Well, since we're talking about starters, what do you guys think of the Sun and Moon starters?
Unimpressed, really.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. Especially, isn't this like the second or third seal looking thing that we've?
Yeah, well, it's also not. It's not exactly the first fire cat either. It's also not exactly the first bird that you see flying around. And when there's many flying types, there's always seem to infest the first couple of pastures that you run through anyway. Mm-hmm. It seems to me that they should have gone, maybe they should have gone with starters that were of a completely different sort, like have one fairy, one dark, and one psychic to start with. Something new and original, yeah?
Yeah, instead of the usual fire, water, grass.
Right.
But, I mean, I kind of get why they do it, because those three make up a nice game of rock, paper, scissors. But there are other types that do that. Psychic. Yeah, right.
Then you look at electric, ice, and ground, maybe. Mm-hmm. I don't know, man. Honestly, as far as the new one's concerned, there are a couple of things that I'm excited about. Like, I find myself drawn to the Mimikyu, which is the ghost type that's got the little sheet on its head shaped like Pikachu. Mm-hmm. And that one interests me just because it looks like it will fit into both my Ghost team and my Cutie Pie team.
Nice.
But I'm really not happy about the fact that they're giving you pre-evolutions to Zygarde now.
Yeah. I just thought pre-evolutions were weird. Like when they introduced Pichu, I guess, was he Gen 2?
Yeah, he was Gen 2.
Yeah, Gen 2, for sure.
And it was like, this is strange.
I don't mind pre-evolutions as long as they're rebooting the series instead of adding it on, because you've got these Pikachus that you've had forever, and Professor Oak is like, yeah, it's a stage 1. You're never gonna. It's a basic type. You're never gonna see any smaller version of it, and then all of a sudden there's a Pichu. Well, maybe I was wrong. Don't know everything I think I know.
Right.
Maybe this is why I'm sending 10-year-olds out to their doom to find all this stuff out for me.
My wife, because she's super into this game, and so she saw the cartoons on Netflix. So she goes, oh, hey, we should check this out, because she didn't watch it when it was on the air. And so we're watching the first episode, and Ash shows up late because he overslept. And Professor Oak takes him into his house to give him a starter Pokemon and hands him 3 empty Pokeballs. And I'm like, you're just teasing him. Like, you mean little old man. And then reluctantly gives him Pikachu.
From the original series.
What's that now?
You're talking about the very, very first episode, like the pilot.
Yeah.
Indigo League, right?
Right.
Back, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, he and it's weird because it's all dramatic too. Like they're in this machine, and Ash gets all excited, and it's like, did you forget that they're empty? Why are you even keeping them in this thing anymore? For that matter, why didn't you give those Pokeballs to the trainers that took them? Did you put the Pokemon in new Poke? It was just the weirdest thing, and of course, things that I didn't think about when I was. How old was I when I came out? Like 12 or 13 or something. So, because I was a dumb kid. But
maybe it would actually make more sense is for them to just from now on give everybody an Eevee as their starter. Period.
There you go.
And
I like that.
pick an evolution stone and go for it.
Because they've got to be adding more evolutions. They have to. They've done one every single generation. So I mean, they did Fairy last time, and then Dark and Psychic before that, and you had the originals, and they had the Ice type come out in Gen 2 maybe, Gen 3, something like that. Glaceon.
Yeah, that sounds right.
So now what they got to do is add an evolved normal type version, so making like a big, Entei looking lion beast thing, and maybe a steel type, and have them all jagged and sharp and mean looking, and you still have your ground and rock type they haven't touched yet. I mean, there's so many things that they can still do. I mean, I'm looking at Eevees, and I'm thinking you could make a flying type out of this thing and have it look like a hippogriff or something.
That'd be cool.
It would be cool.
Is there a dragon Eevee evolution?
There is not.
I didn't think so.
There should be.
Yeah, that would also be cool.
Yeah. I was just about to say an Eevee that breathes fire, but that would be Flareon, so.
Flareon, right.
Speaking of Flareon, those things tend to dominate the gyms around here, the various evolutions. Them and the Executor.
Yeah.
I'll be saying.
Around here, it's Vaporeons are seen a lot, and apparently, I keep reading that those are stat-wise are OP. I mean, I haven't noticed. Maybe they are. And I've seen quite a few Snorlaxes.
Yeah.
And what surprises me is the number of Gyarados that I see around here. But
Gyarados.
I mean, because that's 400 Magikarp candies to get that. However, I live fairly close to the coast of the Gulf of Mexico. I do know that if you just go sit down by the water, there's Magikarps everywhere. Yeah. So it's just.
Well, you could be like me and actually catch a Gyarados in the wild.
Well, there you go. I have not seen a Gyarados in the wild.
I haven't even seen a Magikarp.
Oh yeah.
I caught 3 Magikarp and a Gyarados right next to a sushi joint in Buffalo, New York.
Nice. What was its combat power?
14.
Even better.
That's fantastic. That's when you go take over a gym and you put him there just to
send a message.
Yeah, just.
Well, I actually just noticed that one of the gyms in town. There's 2 in the town that I live in. They have been ruled by Valor for a week now, and I just seen that one of them was taken over by Mystic, and the Pokemon that beat it replaced it, and it's the exact same one. It was an Executor, now it's an Executor again, but then there's also a Vaporeon underneath it, and that's interesting.
Yeah. Speaking of
right now, actually.
Speaking of the teams, what teams are you guys representing?
The only one that matters, Mystic.
And Vince?
The very best, Valor.
Whatever. Team Instinct. When I was making my case for Team Instinct to the rest of my family, because they wanted to be either one of the other two, and I'm like, but Zapdos is an electric bird. It's a bird with an electricity immunity. I mean, come on. And fortunately for me, I got to level 5 before all they did, and I went ahead and picked Instinct, and we all wanted to be on a team together, so they all just picked Instinct. Some of them begrudgingly. But
not shady, brother. You should be ashamed of yourself.
I should be, but I'm not. So.
Oh, see, they've taken over the gym again. It's now blank again. I'm gonna have to go down to the First Baptist Church and show him my my 300 CP Pidgeot.
There you go.
There you go. So, well, since we're on the subject of teams, let's go ahead and move on into some news. Just recently, at San Diego Comic-Con, Niantic, no, I'm sorry, they did this via Twitter, but I'm pretty sure it was during Comic-Con. They announced they revealed the identities of the team leaders. So Mystic's team leader is Blanche, Instinct's is Spark, and Valor is, I'm going to guess that's pronounced Candela.
Probably.
Which I'm going to guess that's kind of like Candle, but with an law at the end of it.
You know, it actually sounds like a Pokemon name, honestly.
It does. Well, and really, Blanche is the only one that like is an actual name.
Yeah, I named my puppy Sparky.
Sparky? Yeah. But you wouldn't name a human. Well, at least I hope you wouldn't name
Well,
a
not
human.
that cruel. I mean, I've come close. I've had my moments.
Yeah. So no idea what any of that means yet because they haven't gone into any sort of detail. But they have said they're adding a lot of stuff to the game very soon, including so apparently which legendary bird is associated with your team is going to matter here pretty soon. I don't know what it could be. I speculate that what's going to happen is everybody from Team Mystic is going to have the opportunity to get Articuno and Instinct Zapdos, and Valor would be Moltres. But I have no idea. I'm just pulling that out of a hat. Makes sense to me. Right,
now the question is, in a couple of years, or however long it takes, when they start putting in the other generations, and you have your other big birds like Ho-Oh and Yveltal and whatnot, are they going to add extra teams to accommodate them?
I don't know. That would be... I would like that. I think the more teams, the better. Did either of y'all play Ingress, Niantic's other game?
No.
I did for a while, and I mean it's basically Pokemon Go is essentially Ingress, but with the added catching of creatures. You didn't do that in Ingress. Ingress's biggest problem was there were only 2 teams, and so if you lived in an area where it was kind of dominated by one team, and it was kind of just you on the other team by yourself, you stood no chance of leaving any sort of impression or footprint around you. Whereas with there being the 3 teams, even if, so like in my area, Instinct is, there's not a whole lot of us. It's mostly Valor, and then Mystic seems to be just underneath them. But because Mystic and Valor are fighting each other, I can still benefit from that. And so I think that the more teams that there are, the better balanced the game could be. Although 3 might be like the magic number that makes it work. I don't know.
I would say 5 would probably be better, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, you're talking rock, paper, scissors, and the way the way it looks like in most of the country that I've seen, it's always between, red and blue. Instinct almost never holds anything, except the notable exception of the very first gym I ever went to in Virginia, I believe it was, and 2, yes, I know I went A and 2, it's kind of my thing. The gym on either side of the entrance and exit of the George Washington Bridge in New York State, which both, as of about 5, 6, 7 days ago, was ruled by Instinct in a sea of red, mind you. And both gyms had a big, shiny, fancy Dragonite standing on top of it, giving us all the finger. But, I mean, I almost never actually see Instinct floating around, but you have massive groups of people. I mean, it's very similar to politics. You have your reds and your blues, and then the occasional yellow kind of flopping around wishing it could make an impression on somebody.
Right.
So, I mean, like, just now,
observation.
As we're talking, I watched a gym switch hands from Valor to Mystic to Valor again.
Right.
So, I mean, this is annoying because it's 2.5 blocks away and I can't go to it. Not that I would have been much help. I mean, my strongest Pokemon right now is a 379 Pidgeot. But I at least could have... No, 373, excuse me. I could have at least put it on there and posed just a little bit of an extra challenge, yeah?
Yeah?
Yeah. Niantic did release stats for kind of the makeup of the teams worldwide. I think I just searched it in Google, and I'm not sure that this is it, but this graph that I got here in front of me says that Team Mystic makes up about 43% of all players, and then Valor is 32, and Instinct makes up the remaining 25. So there's certainly more Mystic players worldwide than the other two, but even so, Valor's got a 7-point lead on Instinct. So
Yeah.
now
I think the guys that are actually playing Valor have a tendency to play more and play harder than Mystic. In most places I go, it's usually dominated by red, with the occasional blue thrown in for color. I don't know why that is. I know I don't spend all day playing. In fact, I only turn the game on 3 or 4 times a day, just casually to see if there's anything around me.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm a filthy casual, so.
Plebeian.
Well, I mean, like I don't have time to make this. What is this here? This is a. I don't have time to make 1001 Golduck, 1092 Rapidash, 1200 Flareon, or a 1200 Jolteon, 1200 Clefable, or a 2000 some odd Snorlax.
Wow.
25 Venusaur. Man, that is a nasty gym. Wow.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to go anywhere near that. Good grief. But yeah, I'm with you. I've never run into a gym that looked nearly that daunting, but I do run into the occasional one that, you know, there'll be a couple like 700 and 800s in there, and then the top one will be up in the 1500s or approaching 2000, and I'm like, yeah, I got a life. And it's not Pokemon Go. And I can't. Now, you know, hey, if you've got that kind of time, more power to you.
Well, I don't though. I work 70 plus hours a week.
Right. I'd say most people don't.
Yeah.
And I imagine most of those super high level ones are probably, you know, still kids who don't have jobs and right now or have school out for the summer.
Right. Well, on that point, actually, my sister-in-law, my brother's wife, drove with me down into Chattanooga on Monday. She was accompanying me when I went to apply for my mortgage loan and everything. We walked through the house that I was buying and all that. But on the way back, we decided to, you know, hit all the Pokestops in town.
Mm-hmm.
Not Chattanooga. That place is now. But here in Jasper. And there's a nice little circuit you can hit. You can hit about 30 different stops in the span of about 15 minutes if you time it right. And we're driving along, and I happen to notice that there is this lady sitting in the parking lot of a church. And she's just kind of staring over at her passenger seat. I don't see anybody in the passenger seat. Then she gets off and drives away. We get our Pokestop, and we go to the next one on the circuit, and lo and behold, there's the minivan again with the lady sitting staring at her passenger seat. And we end up following this lady through 7 different Pokestops before she starts kind of staring at us and giving us the eye like we were trying to stalk her or something.
Right.
But as it happens, I ended up getting close enough and saw that she had a kid, you know, probably 8, 9 years old, playing on a phone at the stop that we hit. And I'm just thinking, well, I would have to, you know, I don't know what I would have to do to convince my mother to drive around town in circles just for Pokeballs when, you know, she's always talking about letting the heat out and, you know, how much gas costs and all that. I mean, he must have done something real swell to get his mum to do that.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, for sure.
Because even when I've got a few minutes and of extra time, and I'm like, yeah, I'll hit these Pokestops, I'm even conscious of the fact that, you know, this tank of gas is not going to last me as long as the other ones because I keep stopping every, you know, 200 feet to check into a Pokestop. So, yeah, the game may be free to play, but it's not really free to play.
Define free to play.
Right. You can download it.
You might end up being lucky, though, and ended up going somewhere for a period of time that happens to have a gym or a Pokestop. For instance, again, on Monday when I went out with my sister-in-law, we went to lunch at a place called Sugar's Barbecue in Chattanooga, which I'm not going to plug it positive or negative, but it just happens to also be a gym. So, you know, we sat there while we were waiting for lunch, and we knocked it down and took it over. It was, you know, 2 or 3 hours later, we got our Pokemon back, beaten, battered, and bruised. But she and I and my brother and my wife and I suppose my kids, if we can't find a babysitter, we're going to go down to a place in South Pittsburgh called Steve Areno's. And if you sit at just the right table, you're exactly in the middle between 3 different Pokestops, and you can actually be hitting all 3 of them all night long while you wait for your dinner and eat your supper and whatnot.
Nice.
So, it's going to end up costing me about $50 for dinner, but, I'm going to probably walk away with 100 more Pokeballs,
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, there's a few restaurants here, Mexican restaurants. They've got like murals in them, and so the mural is sometimes something. And one night we were sitting in one of them, and it happened to be a gym, and so we went ahead, my wife and son and I, we went ahead and took it over. But before the night was over, someone else had taken it, which we kind of figured would happen,
Right.
with it being a restaurant.
Yeah.
The mall in Cheektowaga, New York, has a P.F. Chang's in it, and inside that P.F. Chang's, I believe, is 7 Pokestops.
Oh my goodness!
Fancy artwork and crap on the walls.
That's crazy. Wow.
And I'm just
I actually work at a church, so and my office is where I sit in my office. I am just out of reach of a Pokestop.
Ah, boo!
I have to get up and I can go to the office door and reach it, but still, getting up every 5 minutes is
You
just...
just need to tell the pastor, hey, I want a new office. I want it about 20 feet that way.
If I had his office, it would be perfect.
Well, that's
why he's not giving you that office, right?
Right. Because he's in there. You writing your sermon? Yes. Well, focus tops. Oh, yeah. My church, for whatever reason, isn't anything. And it's the only church in the area that I've come across that isn't at least a Pokestop. And I'm not sure why. The only thing I can think of is our church it's not like in a church building. It's in, I guess you would think of it as storefront property, even though we're the only thing in the storefront. And it's also kind of off the road a little bit. If you were just driving down, you'd never even know it was there.
Well, see, that's not really a big deal, though. I mean, if you come down to Jasper, they've got so many Pokestops that are way out of the way. For instance, you have to go into a cemetery to hit 3 of them. Then you go behind the school to the Shriners Lodge, and then you go to the Mason Lodge, and then you go to the museum that nobody ever goes to except for to catch Pokemon anymore. And being off the beaten path isn't exactly a problem for that. But one thing to notice, though, is that from what I read somewhere, and I don't recall where precisely, the database for the locations and whatnot in Pokemon Go were taken directly from Ingress.
Yes.
And as a result, some of these places are actually out of date when it comes to the names of the places themselves. Mm-hmm. One of the Pokestops here is in a church that has gone through like 3 name changes since, I guess, the original game came out. It used to be some non-denominational Protestant group, and then now it's one of those extreme churches where they've got like the guys with the nose rings and the skateboards and the guitars and whatnot, and it's got the big flashy fancy signs, but it looks like I don't know, it looks like a flop house, honestly.
There's a few stops around here that I've noticed. I pull them up and I'm like, that's not what this is. And so I figured that's what it was, is that it was probably something in English very early on, and then it changed hands and just nobody updated. But that's you get that a lot with even with like Google Street View. Something will change and Google doesn't.
Well, sure, but I mean, Google is constantly updated. You got the guys that are paid to do nothing but drive around, and then you had the satellite views for the the Google Earth and whatnot. Which interesting story. I was in the Navy when this started to first become big, and the base that I was on, because of my job, was a classified area, and taking pictures was a violation of federal law, and they actually had to pass a law saying that they weren't allowed to show any pictures or take any pictures of specific areas. So for a while there, until they decided to roll it back some, the bases that I worked at had a big fat black square like a redacted statement would have on it.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering, okay, so if you have Google constantly capable of updating what they have with their cars with the cameras on them, or their satellite imagery, and the constant updates to various GPS systems from independent cartographers and whatnot. Do you suppose they're going to add a feature? Add a feature where individual players, because they have a massive player base, can actually submit locations to become like the upcoming Poke Centers or new Pokemon stops and what have you.
Right.
There's quite a number of places around here that are centers for activity. For example, this is a small town, so everybody's at Walmart every day. So why isn't Walmart's a gym or something?
Right. They announced, because this was a feature in Ingress, and I want to say in Ingress it was actually part of the app. You could snap a photo and upload it, with a short description of what it is and why you think it should be a portal in that game. Niantic said there's a forum or somewhere on their website where now you can upload a photo of a location, and I think the photo needs to have the geocache location, like when you take it with your phone, so they know where it is. And you can update or upload a little description with it telling, why you think it should be, a Pokestop or a gym or whatever. There's also, on this same website, a way to report places that might be something, but perhaps it's inappropriate.
I actually saw a Pokestop in New Jersey that was actually a gentleman's club.
Yeah, there's a bar that I pass on my way to work every church every Sunday, and I'm not 100% certain that it's a strip club, but considering it's way off the road and there's no windows on the front of it, kind of makes me think it might be, and it's a Pokestop.
So perverts need Pokemon too, yeah?
Right, obviously. Yeah. This is an all-inclusive game.
Well, it has to be in today's society, right?
Speaking of that seems like a nice way to transition into a segment we wanted to do. We want to talk about Pokemon Go safety. There's been a lot of stories in the news, in a lot of ways they're told, as sort of like negative press pieces about Pokemon Go. People have been doing this stuff for as long as there have been phones that we could text from, so this isn't anything new. It's just happening more often now because so many people are playing the game. But people are not watching where they're going, and they're stepping into the middle of the street to catch a sandshrew or whatever, and they're getting hit by cars.
Well, see, if there was anything I would want to run into traffic for, it would be a sandshrew.
Obviously.
I agree, absolutely.
And there's a story on pretty much any news. If you just Google the stuff, you can find it on pretty much any news outlet. But in Baltimore, some guy was playing it while driving, and he hit a police cruiser. And apparently there's I haven't seen it, but apparently there's dash cam footage of it happening.
Awesome.
Yeah, so you can bet that guy did not have a good day playing Pokemon.
That story can actually be found on USA Today fairly easily. Okay,
yeah. And I think they've got the dash cam footage on the article, right?
Yeah, they do. They also have the article about the gentleman who drove into a tree, and they have their own list of don't do that's.
Yep.
Which I imagine are the same ones that we have. But if you'll excuse me, I'll read their don't do that.
Go for it.
Okay. According to Auburn Police Chief Sean Butler, you should not use the application when you are operating a motor vehicle or bicycle. I mean, that's common sense, yeah? Do not trespass on private property when trying to catch a Pokemon. And on that note, I've actually seen plenty of things on Facebook with people putting up snarky signs about that very subject.
Yep.
You should be aware of your surroundings when walking. Do not stare down at your phone, not knowing hazards around you like roadways, drop-offs, waterways, etc. Of course, there was that story about the people that fell off the cliff, which I'm still not sure if that was satire or not.
I'm gonna hope it was.
It's that uncanny line where you don't know.
You just don't know anymore.
Well, I want to say in that one, to actually wind up getting to the cliff to even fall off of it in the first place, I think they had to scale a fence. So they were somewhere they shouldn't have been.
Right. Use caution when sharing your location, as strangers can see your location information. Now, I'm not sure where they get that from exactly. Because I don't have any way of using like a Poke Radar to find anybody else playing yet.
Right.
I assume once they do battling and sharing and whatnot, they'll probably have some sort of beacon or whatnot. But the final one is travel in groups in public well-lit locations. And on that note, just a couple of days ago, the Jacksonville Jaguars opened up their practice fields to people on a Pokemon hunt, and well over 10,000 people showed up.
Wow.
Yeah, pictures, man. They had helicopters going by taking pictures, man. It was like a swarm of carpenter ants or driver ants going over, a dead frog or something. I mean, it was just wall-to-wall people. You could not see the ground, and the line started like 12 hours before the event started. It was insane. It was.
Oh my word! That's crazy.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
But that just goes to show the popularity of either this game or Pokemon. And Pokemon has been around for over 20 years now, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's got staying power, it's got popularity despite other similar games coming up, like, Monster Hunter, and then you had Digimon, the TV show.
Digimon was big,
And there's still people who say Digimon is better.
They're wrong.
They are very wrong.
I never liked it. I don't want my monsters to be snarky and talking back to me.
Right. And every single one of their names ended with Mon.
Right, which was
all of them. Like, what is that? Now,
lack of imagination.
Yeah, I do know Shelly, who is if you listen to the Geeks Under Grace podcast, she's on that. She swears up and down that Digimon is better than Pokemon, and I'm like, no, it's just not. Now
hold on, just a minute. I'm gonna give it a bit of a boost. Okay, I never really watched it. Okay, because I thought it was juvenile and childish. But to be fair, I also didn't watch the Pokemon TV show. I thought it is to me similar to like Dragon Ball Z. It was formulaic. It was very low on storyline. But I would still say that Dragon Ball had a better story than Pokemon did as far as TV shows were concerned. Well, I read an article probably a week ago, and I'm not really sure why I did. I think it just popped up on my Facebook feed or something. And it said Digimon is better than Pokemon, and here is why. And it went through this, 2 or 3 page explanation. And based on the explanation, I'd say that given what they said, it probably was better because it had a driving storyline that had progression from beginning to end, not just a couple of kids running around and not actually ever accomplishing anything.
Right.
Because that is what always struck me about Pokemon, the anime, was that it seemed like nothing was ever actually happening. Even when he won a badge, he never became champion. And I gotta swear to you, man, about 16 hours in, I was the champion in Pokemon Red.
Right.
I mean, it's like... It's kind of like if you watch some of the cartoons where the status quo is always brought back to at the end of the show. Like your Family Guys, your Simpsons, or what have you. That's the way Pokemon always seems to me. You always go back to the basic concept of kid running around with a couple of trapped Pokemon, fighting people and stopping Team Rocket or whoever from whatever dastardly deed they were doing this week. But Digimon had an actual story where they were trying to actually save the world, which Pokemon reserved for its movies.
Right.
Yeah.
And I watched Pokemon, and all of those things are very true. I mean, sure, you could argue that, because like the pilot episode that I just watched, I mean, it ends with Pikachu has been severely injured by a swarm of Spearow, and so Ash is running into, what's the second city in that game? Is it Viridian City?
I believe it's Viridian. Yeah.
Yeah, and it ends on that cliffhanger of, oh no, is he going to make it to the Pokemon Center and save Pikachu? Now, of course, it's a kid show. Obviously, he's going to be fine. But yeah, if you had missed the pilot and just started watching it from episode 2 for some reason, I don't think you'd have been that lost.
No, see, well, then you go, and I'm going to show you a little bit of my anime knowledge as far as Pokemon is concerned. There was an episode where they actually discussed the evolution of Pikachu, where they talked about how they can be evolved by using the Thunderstone or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And they got about, well, it'll change who he is. He'll become a completely different, thing. His personality will change, blah, blah, blah. And Ash let him choose. And, of course, he went straight back to just being a Pikachu, despite Raichu being, exponentially more powerful.
Right.
And I believe this was actually during, like, a gym battle or something, or a Pokemon League event. Mm-hmm. And it just goes to show that they wanted to make it easier to follow. Now, my primary criticism of the Pokemon anime is that I am a story-driven anime fan. I love shows that have long, involved stories that progress over time, and I just felt that Pokemon never really progressed. Same with the games. The games each had that sort of lack of real progression. Once the primary story is done, you just go back around, walking around, battling some more. So, back to the original point, in that respect, Digimon is probably superior, but only in the storytelling perspective.
Right.
As far as mechanics are concerned, you don't get the same kind of progression with Digimon because, as I understand it, every one of their evolutions ends at the end of the battle. So it's kind of like a mega evolution in Pokemon.
Yeah, I think that's right, because all of their growing, it happens within each fight. And nothing is permanent.
It's kind of like Power Rangers, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a show that I always wondered, like, why don't you just get the Megazord and win? I don't understand all this stuff that happens at the beginning.
The original Power Rangers, as released by Saban in the United States, wasn't actually acted by the American actors in most cases.
Right. It's like a smattering of Japanese shows that they...
Yeah, it was cut-ins of Super Sentai, and then you had like the actual actors who played Zack and Billy and Jason and all them doing very short cuts. They only had like 3 hours of total work throughout the day, and then a couple of voiceovers.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like a pretty sweet gig, if you ask me.
Well, it does, until you realize exactly how cursed a role in the Power Rangers actually was.
Yeah, I've read some... there was a Cracked article about what's happened to some of those guys, and it's like, that's jacked up.
Drug abuse. I mean, the only one that is ever, who seems to still be running strong is a guy who played the Green Ranger / White Ranger. Yep. And it's just sad watching him because that's what he's basically based his whole life on. His whole career is, I was the Green Ranger.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The girl who was the Pink Ranger has some
Amy
part
Jordan.
on a... Yeah, she's got some part on a cop drama in Canada. I don't know if it's still on anymore, but you can watch it on Netflix.
I do remember her in a Disney movie where she died. She was a ghost for that movie. I don't remember what it was called. I'm going to look that up now, actually.
I don't remember her. Other than Power Rangers and that, and the only reason I know about the cop show is I used to work at a CBS-affiliated TV station, and even though the show was Canadian, I think one year CBS had a show that just didn't catch on, and so they canceled it real early, and they needed filler, so they started airing episodes of that show in its place. I don't even remember what it was called anymore. You can watch it on Netflix if it's something you care about.
Well, I mean, to be fair, we get a lot of Canadian movies down here.
Yeah. A lot of things are shot in Canada, too.
Oh, yeah, they've got favorable tax situations. That's why you see so many movies and whatnot filmed in Georgia.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
What is the name of this movie? I'm not seeing it now.
Just
that's sad.
I'm imagining that you Googled Disney movie where Amy Jo Johnson is dead.
No, I just I searched for Amy Jo Johnson. I'm looking at her filmography.
Yeah.
Let's see, what was she in? She was a vampire in a movie. She did a couple of feel-good pieces for like Lifetime type stuff, athlete who develops an eating disorder and then overcomes her disabilities and blah blah blah. Let's see. She was in Saved by the Bell, one episode.
Really?
Yeah, she was in ER, Spin City, Felicity. Let's see.
She just made the rounds, sounds like.
Yeah, she doesn't have that long, that really lengthy filmography that a lot of actors do that were good for a while and then just kind of... She's also got some music she put out. She got 3 studio albums and then 4 tracks in as a featured artist. That's interesting. Sorry to take us off topic.
No, that's fine.
Time. Wow, she's gotten old.
How old is she?
She's 45.
Really?
Wow.
But I mean, looking at her face, I mean, it's filled out so much, you would never recognize her for that skinny kind of, that skinny, I don't know, tramp that she used to be.
You heard it here, folks.
What?
Wow.
Oh, anyway, circling back around.
Would you let me use something else? Maybe she was a scrumpet. How's that?
No, I don't. I wouldn't have known what a scrumpet was.
Yeah, me neither.
Then I would have Googled it and maybe been afraid after that.
Don't Google it. Don't
I
Google
have
it.
learned not to Google things.
Yep, somebody that I know from England posted something on Facebook and I didn't know what it was, and so I Googled it and then I messaged them, "Why did you let me do that?" I don't even remember what it was. It was just traumatizing.
To be fair, a scrumpet is actually just a really tasty baked good.
No.
Well, it sounds delicious.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, it's a bit rich for me, though.
Now that I know what it is, it sounds delicious. But before that, I was kind of worried. Last thing about the game before we wrap it up here. I wanted to know, have you guys spent any money on it?
$1 exactly.
Would you? Well, so that would have been 100 coins. So
Yeah.
what did
20
you?
Pokeballs.
Yeah.
Well, I took the farm out to... Hey, get off my laptop, cat. Come on. Took the farm out to a buffet last night, Western Sizzlin. Not impressed. Don't go to buffets in the middle of the week.
Noted.
Mm-hmm.
And as it happens, my son kept having Pokemon pop up on top of his plate and on top of his head. He had a Weedle in his salad at one point. But there was a Clefairy that I really wanted to catch, and I had no Pokeballs, so I just said, you know what, I'm gonna do it. So I bought $1's worth of Pokeballs. That came out to 20 balls, I believe, and
That sounds right.
ended up catching about 16 different useless Pokemon, various Zubats and the occasional bug type.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
What about you, Vince?
I have spent about $5 on the game. Yeah, as a rule, I generally try not to spend money on mobile games, but this one, the other night especially, a Fearow popped up. I was sitting on my couch and I pulled up the game, and a Fearow popped up, and I didn't have him yet. So I popped in. I had 9 Pokeballs left. Mm-hmm. And he busted out of every one of them.
Oh my goodness. That's the worst.
So I was like, so at that point I was aggravated enough that I begrudgingly I went in and paid $1 to go get 20 more Pokeballs, which he broke out of another 10 or so. So I was like, no, not worth it. I'm not gonna waste my time on that. So I spent that money and then I didn't get that Pokemon, which was frustrating.
That stinks.
Yeah, it does. And then I actually spent another $1 today because I was hunting a Snorlax, which I didn't wind up tracking down, unfortunately. But
A quick interjection, that gym that keeps swapping hands is under attack again.
Yeah. I like that when a gym's in the middle of a fight, you can see that it's happening.
yes.
That's really neat. I have not spent any money on this game yet, though every time my bag gets full, I get real tempted to go ahead and buy that bag upgrade, and I haven't yet. Now, if I ever decide to, I have this app on my phone, Google Surveys or something like that, and just every now and then it pops up, hey, we noticed you were at this store or whatever, rate your experience or something like that. It's just real quick. It takes all of 5 or 10 seconds to do the survey. But every time I do one, I get somewhere between 10 and 50 cents deposited into my Google Play account. And I never spend money on the Google Play Store. So over time, I've built up like $20, $25 that's just sitting in there. So if I ever do decide to spend money on it, I'm actually spending Google's money. So I don't really care.
I know exactly how that is. I get bonus points for every gallon of diesel I put in my truck, and I save those up to buy the fancy things that I put in my truck.
Mm-hmm. That's the way to do it.
Yep.
So, but yeah, my wife said that someone she works with bought the bag upgrade, and that has been like telling us, oh, you should get it, and I'm like, yeah, but that's like, it's $2 and all you really gain are 50 slots in your eye. And I don't know this, but I have a feeling that after you buy the first bag upgrade, then there's probably another one and then another one, and before you know it, you're spending $10 on stinking bag upgrades. So
well, I mean, it's not exactly like that's a bad thing. Yeah, they've got the right to make money.
Oh yeah, I don't blame them at all. In fact, this is the only free to play game that I've ever played that I didn't feel like they were just trying to squeeze money out of me, because I also play Pokemon Shuffle, and I'm like, that game is built to extract money from my bank account and no other reason. And I'm like, if you guys would just let me give you $10 to unlock the game, I would like that.
Yeah.
But they've found a way to make money, making it free to play, and I don't blame them. I just tried to look this up because I'm sure it's different, but rumor was going around that Pokemon Go is bringing in something like $14 million a day there for a while. I don't know if that would have slowed down just because it's been out longer, or if it would have increased since it's now out in more regions.
I would possibly it has gone down, given that the number of actual active players has been dropping steadily since the first couple of days because of the server crisis.
Right. So that's my guess. I do know that before, and I don't really understand how the stock market works, but back when investors thought that Nintendo owned Pokemon 100%, that their stock went through the roof. And then like a few days ago, or maybe even a week ago, Nintendo released their like projected earnings report, and it said in there, hey everyone, you guys realize we only own 30-something% of the Pokemon company. We ourselves are not making a ton of money off of Pokemon Go. It's more Niantic and the Game Freak and all the other people who are involved in that. Okay, and then their stock plummeted again.
Let's say you have a company like an IP like Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's partially owned by one company and partially owned in majority by the other, so we'll say Pokemon on one side and Game Freak / the Pokemon company on the other.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have a company, or you have the joint ownership of this company licensing out the IP to other companies like Niantic. I'm sure that Niantic wasn't approached by the Pokemon company. I'm sure that Niantic said, hey, you know what, maybe we can use this infrastructure to do something interesting. Maybe we should offer a soft sell to the Pokemon people, and maybe we can make something happen. And the Pokemon company would be like, okay, look, here's what we'll do. You can pay us such and such amount of money for the rights to attempt to build something, and then we're going to take a percentage off of your off the top of every sale that you make.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say that even if Niantic is only paying 20% of what they make in, Of $1 million, that's $200,000, right? So $200,000 going to the owner. Now I multiply that by 14. You're still talking well over $1 million a day to the owners of this franchise.
Right.
And then you add into the fact that you still have the other Pokemon products. Okay, you have your cartridge games, and X and Y still sell, Omega and Alpha still sell. They're about to put out Sun and Moon. Then you have all the products coming out, like the shirts and the stuff that they sell at Hot Topic, and the backpacks and the shoes and the shoelaces and the Band-Aids and all this, the various things that have the Pokemon, property on them. You're still looking, even if you're only looking at 20% on a licensed product, you're still looking at many millions of dollars a day. So whether they're not making a quote-unquote whole lot of money, brother, I tell you, I would take 1% of that and
absolutely
live for the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
So, I mean, it would be a mistake to just, shell out, to sell all the stock that you had in Nintendo. And Nintendo, despite noticeable and remarkable gaffes over the past, decade or so, they're still one of the strongest companies out there. I mean, they could not make another single thing, and they have enough money stockpiled to last them another 20 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the numbers precisely, but I read in an article saying that Nintendo has actually stockpiled enough money to last and pay all their employees that they still have for decades to come, even if they don't make another, anything.
Right.
So, even if they lose money over the next however many years, they're still going to end up being profitable.
Mm-hmm.
At least to the individual, not necessarily to the company.
Right. Yeah, I wouldn't. When people, the Wii U did poorly, and people are like, oh, that's the end of Nintendo. No, it's. I mean, that would be like saying if the Xbox One is not performing as well as Microsoft wanted it to, and the Xbox brand is dead, and Microsoft's in trouble. No, they've got their fingers in so many other things that one little hiccup here and there is not gonna.
Well, yeah, I mean, look at the Virtual Boy. I mean, come on.
That thing was a disaster.
And I loved it. That was the first system that I loved with all my heart, and I wish that I still had one.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, if you got to think, Nintendo has been around since before electricity.
Yeah.
So they're not going to die anytime soon.
Right.
No. Yeah.
So. All right. I think that's gonna do it. Wait, you folks listening at home, when we first planned this, I'm gonna be real honest and transparent with you. We weren't real sure how this was gonna go, and we just got an hour show out of this, so that's good. I'm happy with this. So let's go ahead and wrap this up so we can get back to our lives. So
judo chop my wife.
You guys, is there anything y'all want to say? Is there like anything that y'all are involved in online that you want people to know about, if there is?
No, brother, I'm boring.
Yeah. I wouldn't say you're boring. I think you did most of the talking this show, which I like. It was good.
Oh, I did not. You are blattier than I
am.
Tell you what,
we're laughing at both of you.
When I'm editing it, I'll time it and see who talks.
Yeah, do that, and I want you to tell me what it was next time.
Perfect.
All right. Well, Vince, where can we find you?
You can find me on Facebook. You can follow me on Facebook, facebook.com/Vince Chapman Writes. You can follow me on Twitter at Chapman_Vince. And hope to see you on the World Wide Web.
So you write stuff? I didn't know this.
I do write stuff.
What do you write?
I write some fiction, some fantasy and sci-fi type stuff, and obviously I write for Geeks Under Grace. Is my main outlet of writing at this point. So
I don't think I realized you were on the writing staff at Geeks Under Grace.
I joined shortly before you departed.
Ah, got it.
So you were there after I left then.
Yep. Cool.
Yep.
So, well, you can find me a lot of places. Facebook.com/AboveParProductions. Find me on Twitter at Patrick Proper. I do another podcast. It's a retro gaming podcast. You find that at ogcast.podbean.com. Or from there, you can get the RSS feed, just like you can for this show, and subscribe to it on whatever podcasting platform you prefer if you'd rather not go through Podbean. That's made available to you. I have an esports league that I'm working on with some people. You can find that at crossforgegaming.com. I'm sure I'll talk about it in more detail sometime on this show. And then I got a website, patrickallenryan.com, that I haven't updated in forever, but I'm trying to get back on that. But from there, you can find my 2 YouTube channels. And the only reason I tell people to go to there instead of to YouTube is because I'm not popular enough on YouTube to have a custom domain. So it would be like, go to youtube.com/blah, blah, 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 and question mark, exclamation, all that nonsense that YouTube makes. So this is just easier. I think that's going to do it. Thanks for joining us. I'm not actually sure what day the episodes are going to be uploaded normally. I know this is not going to be on the normal day because we had recording stuff going on, but I'm shooting for Wednesday. So if you're listening to this and it's not Wednesday yet, look for episode 2 next Wednesday. Hopefully I'll get it up by then. So anyway, thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed it, and be safe. Don't walk into traffic catching sand shrews.
Hey.